we'll start by talking about the Azure portal, which you guys are used to at this point, at least. One or two of the exercises, you should have used the portal to actually, complete those exercises. Then I've also, used that portal to demonstrate some of the work too that we had in this course. So the other tools, we have the Cloud Shell, which is almost the same thing like the Bash that you have on the Linux environment. Then we have the CLI, works almost the same way. Then we have the PowerShell on its own, which you would always see on your Windows machine. Then we'll talk about what we call the Azure Arc. So for the Azure Arc, it's just the purpose is an organization have moved to Azure, to the cloud, but they have some infrastructures, that are still on their on-premises environment, like their server, their machine. So Azure Arc gives you that leverage to be able to extend your Azure environment to your on-premises, or to other cloud environments like your AWS or your Google GCP. So it allows you to to extend your Azure environment to your multi-cloud and your on-premises, so you can make use of the infrastructure on premises, take advantage of those servers you've gotten there, should in case you want to still continue using them. Then we'll talk about the Azure Resource Manager and the ARM template. So this resource manager, like I said, every resource you are trying to create on Azure is actually, there is actually a technology that is actually behind this deployment, and that is the Azure Resource Manager. So you will notice that if you try to deploy your virtual machine, if you have done those exercises or the storage account, um, you will be redirected to, after filling, all those basic information. Then you click on overview, you click on create. It's going to redirect you to another page to say deployment in progress. That deployment is done by what we call the Azure Resource Manager. So it manages the deployment, the modification of all your resources. Then the Azure Resource Manager on its own, there are templates. Then what we say template, you know, what are some of the things this Azure Resource Manager uses, to determine what needs to be deployed, and that's what we call the template. So most times, instead of using the portal to create, your resource, you can also use this template to create your resource automatically. So we'll take a look at how you can actually automate the creation of your resource, like your virtual machine database, without you logging into the portal. So majorly, the ARM template works the same way. Just you running some line of codes that are very easy to learn, very very easy. I think would have a view of how the template looks like. Then all these Cloud Shell, all these CLI, PowerShell are just ways to, they are tools that are used in automating the deployment of resources. So yes, as a cloud engineer, you might decide not to learn any code. You might decide not to even know how to deploy anything automatically. You might decide not to even use the PowerShell. But I can tell you, it helps a lot when a little about it. And the good thing is, no matter the resource you're deploying, no matter the resource you are trying to modify, there are PowerShell scripts, that are used for this particular purpose on the Microsoft documentation. So you do not need to come in, but at least for any tool you want to use, you need to have a basic understanding. You cannot just be running any script. you need to have an understanding of what you are running, what this script will do when you actually, run it in your environment. So, and that's it. So those are things we'll be looking at today. So we'll talk about, you know, Azure portal. Like I said, this is the graphic user interface that you guys have been able to use to access the Azure portal. You need to go to the URL portal.azure.com. Then the PowerShell, like I said, the PowerShell, the Cloud Shell, the command line interface, all these are tools that helps in automatically creating, when we want to automate the deployment or creation or modification of our resources. So do not worry about this now. These are things, there are different labs when we get to the cloud administrator that focuses on each of these tools. So, but have that in mind that when you want to automate, the management of your resources or your services in Azure, these are tools that we use in doing that. Then, like I said, the Azure Arc is actually a technology behind you extending your Azure environment to your on-premises environment or to other multi-cloud environment. So you want to make use of maybe some servers that are dormant on your own premises, and you feel like, yes, or you want to host an application in Azure, and at least for replication purposes, you want to replicate it to your on-premises environment, so you can make use of this Azure Arc to extend that management of those resources. Yeah, I just talked about this resource manager. Like I said, is the one in charge of managing your resources. So it provides management level when it comes to creation, updating, deleting your resources in Azure, and that's why it's called the Azure Resource Manager. These are questions that comes during interview. What's the technology behind, um or what does Azure use in managing resources? So we have the Azure Resource Manager. So I talked about ARM template, which is the Azure Resource Manager template, saying there is a way you can actually automate the creation, of your, resources. That means if you are not doing that from the GUI, that will go in there, I will click on create, create a resource. Then from create a resource, you click on create, maybe a virtual machine, you fill in the basic. So you can do all those things, just like writing some code, some line of codes. So that's what we call infrastructure as a code. When you try to create your resources, using some line of codes, and we'll take a look at some of the code. So I said ARM template is a very big tool that is being used in Azure when it comes to infrastructure as a code, creating or managing your resources using code. So we have the ARM template. It's a JSON file, but you do not have to worry about that technical jargons. But at least you know that when you have, let's take for instance, when you go in there to create your virtual machine, you might not remember, what size of machine you even selected the last time, or the region, or the replication strategy that you selected, So, but when you use ARM template or any infrastructure as a code tool, you have that consistent, that consistency, in the sense that you have in there what you've used, the last time. It gives room for repetition, so you get repeatable resources. It gives you rooms for, orchestration, um, like you trying to at least manage those code, those resources effectively. You know that nothing is changing, just like how you deploy your resource the last time. You are going to get the same result. So This is one of the main reasons you want to use a code, to deploy, or ARM template to deploy your resource. There are different tools aside the ARM template. I'm sure you guys might have, heard about other tools like Terraform, Chef, Puppet, Pulumi. There are lots, but Terraform is very common for you might have seen it on maybe LinkedIn, you might have seen it on GitHub environment. But yes, so Azure has its own infrastructure as a core tool, and that's what we call the ARM template. There is another one called Bicep, and Bicep is just an advanced of ARM template. But like I said, do not worry yourself about all these tools. At least have an idea of some of these services, some of these tools. But when we get to Azure Administrator, you know, the tone will actually change. At that point, I will believe you guys are actually on the same level as I am. So that's why I need you guys to complete all those exercises. Take a look at the documentation. If you are missing anything, try to read up. So I will give you guys maybe 2 weeks, to do that. Then we'll start. But at that point, I will be, whenever I talk, I'll be using those terms, to communicate with you guys. So, but at this point, do not worry about, these technical jargons in there. But have an idea that, when we want to automate the creation or the management of our resources, we use what we call infrastructure as a code tool. And one of the most common tool is the ARM template, is Terraform, Chef, Puppet, Pulumi, and some other ones. So I just talked about Bicep, which is a typical example, or this is an extension of ARM template. Is another tool, it's different from ARM template, but it looks the same thing. Is a mini version, let me put it like that, of ARM template. So let's take, for instance, what you can see here. This is how the Bicep looks like, and you can see what they are trying to do is they are trying to create a resource, and this resource is a storage account, and the name that they have given to the resource, the same way you've created your virtual machine and you've given it a name, so the name is storage account. Now they need to select a location. What location do you want to select? So you can select a location that's going to be the region, so then we have what's the size of, or the type of resource you're creating, and that's why you can have it as the storage account v2. But the SKU, like the region, you can see this is saying the standard locally redundancies replication option is what they've selected here. So you can see what storage accounts, the kind of storage that is being created, you can see the storage version 2. Then we have a property, which is the tier that we talked about. Like when you are creating your storage account, you want to select the tier. If it's alt, the code, the archive, the cool, and that's what has been done here. So typically, it's just for you to be able to read, what we have in here. And you can see the resource group also, which is something you always need to select. And what location are they deploying this? They're saying we want to deploy it inside where the resource group is, which is the location of the resource group. So I do not expect you to climb anything, but like I said, just have a basic understanding of how this looks like, and it's something you can read. Is English. It's just what resource, the name, the location, what kind of SKU, the size, or the type of the solid account you want to create. Then you have the kind, then what's the access tier. So this is how it looks like. So we call each of these things that you can see, we call them block. So if I say, what's the SKU block? What's the, kind of storage that can block? So we call it block. Then we'll move on to the monitoring tools. Like I said, all resources that you create in Azure, in AWS, in Google, you want to monitor how um, this resource, is doing, if it's healthy or unhealthy, if your application, if there is a downtime on the infrastructure where your application is, you want to have, that visibility. And that's why we have different monitoring tools for this. So we have, for now, we'll be talking about the Azure Advisor. So this is just to give you a recommendation to say these tools, might become unhealthy at some point. Can you do this? This is going to give you. So that's, as the name, is Azure Advisor, is advises you on some of the things. So we have the service health, which monitors, the healthy state or unhealthy state of resources. Then we have different management tools, like monitoring tools, like the Azure Monitor, the log analytics. So we'll still talk about most of these things, but we'll deep dive into it when we get to the Azure administrator class. So like the application insight, the monitor alert, the application insight is when you deploy an application on any infrastructure in Azure, you want to always monitor the uptime and downtime of that application. So you will use what we call the application insight. It is actually an extension of the Azure Monitor. So the Azure Monitor gives you that GUI visibility, that dashboard visibility of all the activities going on in your Azure environment, So all these log analytics, they are just, let me say, an extension, or they work with the Azure Monitor. So for the log analytics, let me just explain what that is. So when you sign in into the portal, or when you perform any operation, like you creating a resource like a virtual machine, so there is an activity going on in the portal. Like I click on create a resource, I click on virtual machine, I click on create, I click on the basic tab. Those are the activities. So all those activities are being monitored and recorded. So if you go to what we call the activity log on Azure, which you do not need to worry yourself about now, I'm just telling you, but I can show you guys. If you go in there, you will see what you have been doing, which user has been doing what, The same thing goes with the sign-in. There is a log we call the sign-in logs. So you want to see who has signed in to any application in your organization, or the portal, or sign into the portal which belongs to your organization, So you cannot deny, oh, I did not sign in here, So once your account is compromised, we can know, we can see when you sign in. If you try to sign in and let's say your account has a multi-factor authenticator like the 2FA, like, when you try to sign in, you put in your username and password, and you still say, we need you to put in the code that has been sent to your phone, and you cancel that authentication at that particular time, we can see that you know that activity. We can see what you did, that after putting in your name, username and password, you now canceled the signing activity, because you are asked to put in maybe a 2FA code, and we feel like, oh, maybe this account has been hacked, has been hacked. So maybe a security breach. So these are how we monitor. So all those signing logs, activity logs that I just explained, they do not stay in the portal for more than 28 days. So if we want to have the feasibility on signing logs that happened as far back as December last year, we will not get it. And that's why we need that log analytics, so that we can start pushing our logs maybe to a storage account or to any other log analytics, so that they are being kept there. Anytime that we need them, we can go there to pick them from there. Then the monitor alert, it gives you that leverage to be able to set an alert. Let's say, let's take for instance, when jump, those years that we used to write jam, that we want to go and check our jam result, and there are a lot of people trying to access those results at the same time as we, you will notice that the jam site keeps dragging at that particular time. But there is a way to actually monitor this if this is going to happen. And one of the type of alerts that you can create in Azure is what we call the smart detection. So we are going to create an alert based on some properties, the CPU usage of this particular server, or hosting this application, or this machine, or this laptop hosting the particular. Let's bring it down a little. So let's say we have this our laptop hosting that particular application. You will notice that sometimes your system will start dragging. When you want to do anything, it takes time. Or even your phone, sometimes you might need to turn it off, or restart it. Then it will lose that all those um, pages you've saved, and the phone or the system will now restore back to its original state, where you can get to do things faster than it was at that particular time, because maybe at that time there are a lot of things, operation going on the system, and the CPU usage, or the memory usage, because whatever you are doing, there is a CPU usage going, being recorded on your system. So when it gets to maybe 80%, 85%, I think I showed you, in one of the classes where, the CPU usage of one of the infrastructure I was monitoring went ahead as high as 90%. So you want to get an alert to say, if this is happening, please send a notification to this email. So when I see that kind of alert, I can quickly go ahead to say, oh, what do we want to do? Do we want to restart this system? Oh, it's a system that hosts application, we cannot restart it. Do we want to spin up another virtual machine to cater for that incoming traffic? So that's what the monitor alert gives you. So you want to always get an alert based on the data the Azure monitor is gathering. So, and this is what you can see. The Azure advisor analyze your resources and gives you recommendation, on how to make that particular resource, stable, in terms of performance, security, how to reduce cost, how to make sure that it's reliable. So it gives you that recommendation, and that's what the Azure advisor does. Then the service health, like I said, it check the health of your resource, if it's LD, on LD, and tell you, oh, you cannot deploy on this particular, machine. You cannot deploy. And also, aside the resource health, you can check the service health, like if compute is having issues, if a particular region is having issues. Like I gave um the example I gave in the first class, where the one AWS lady came during the election tribunal to say AWS reported that all their infrastructures were up and running at that particular time. So you can check the same thing on Azure, which is Azure status.azure.com. You can see all the services, if they are up and running, at every particular time. Let me see. I think we can it will be good to show you guys how this works. Yes. So if go to status, azure.status.com, you can see, I can scroll down. So this is going to tell me, this is telling me, the last 2 minutes, this refresh every 2 minutes. Do we have any downtime? No downtime. So you can check for each of the region to say, let me go to Europe, what are some of the resources I'm deploying, so you can see good, there is no downtime at this particular time. So the first thing we want to check most times when we notice that maybe our services are dragging, you can go to a region and go and check, if there is a downtime at any point in time. And this was what the person was checking. You can check each of the region within Europe, the UK South, UK West, all those services as reported by Azure, they are up and running. If at any point there's a downtime, it will be reported, and that was what the lady was banking on at that particular time, to say there was no downtime at any point in time. So you can check the Azure Health, you can check it from your portal too. So I don't want to check, I'm just going to so that's how this service health world. It checks your resource, it checks the region, it checks the Azure status, to tell you everything is fine. There is no downtime, So from there we can move on to the monitor. So there are a lot of things. The monitor, it gives you that visibility, it collects data, based on all your resources that are running, and it can tell you, what do you want to do? Do you want to monitor an application using the application insight? Do you want to get, you want to be able to analyze the logs that you have in your environment, like the sign-in logs, the activity logs, the audit logs. Then you want to set a smart alert before there is a downtime. You want to be to receive an alert to say, this particular activity going on might result to an alert, to a downtime. Please, do you want to cater for this? And you can also set up automation action to say, yes, I want to get an alert when the CPU usage of the server or the virtual machine hosting my application gets to 75%. But when it gets to 75%, automatically create another virtual machine to cater for the incoming traffic. So you are automating, what action should be done once that smart alert is triggered. Then you can also customize your dashboard. So the dashboard we have in our organization might be different from what you guys have in your organization, depending on the need. All right, that brings us to the end of this class. If you have any question, please to let me know.
Please, sorry, I want to. Is there any essence of you checking the the status if there was a downtime or something? Though I know that if there was a downtime at any point in time, there would have been a failover to another, just like you used to say, zone or region.
Yeah.
But is it just for you to be aware? There's really nothing you can do as
Yes, you
as
cannot
an
do
engineer,
anything,
just
but
for you to
but
be
yes.
aware.
So let's say you really, just let's take for instance, you work in an organization. You need to inform the team members, that currently there is a downtime in this region. It might affect some of our resources. You guys might not be able to access some resources at some point, maybe during the switch over, or if that resource is not a resource that is being automatically fed over to another region. So you might just want to be on the know that there is a downtime going on. So that's why we have the status. Does that answer your question? Yes.
Yes, please.
All right. So if you guys don't have questions, I'm going to start asking you questions based on um, the knowledge check. I expect, I'm not going to answer anyone. Okay, so let's start with this. I need everyone to participate. Okay, so the first question is, what Azure feature can help stay organized and track usage based on metadata associated with the resource?
That's Azure tag. That's the
Anything
number.
you guys say, I'm gonna pick. Then, what's the best method to estimate the cost of migrating to the cloud while incurring minimal cost? Migrate a small sample to the cloud and track cost over time. Use the total cost of ownership calculator to estimate expected cost. Migrate to the cloud, but track usage closely using tags to rapidly understand cost. For the guys that were in class yesterday, you should give me this answer.
Use the total cost of
Use
ownership.
the total cost of ownership. B.
Yeah. So,
but excuse me, is there anything really like tracers, values, those other options? Because
I don't know about it.
okay.
I don't know about it. So we only have tags. Okay, so what service helps you to manage Azure on-premises and multi-cloud environments?
That's A. Azure Arc.
All right. What two components could you use to implement infrastructure as a code deployment?
Bicep.
And template.
Bicep and template, yes.
Nice. I love you guys. Then let's go to which is not one of the recommendation categories for Azure Monitor. So, I explained that, Azure Advisor, it gives you recommendation based on some things. When you check your resources, it can tell you, your performance, your security, So we just talked about this. I know
that A.
Which one is not a recommendation category for Azure Advisor? It's not.
I think it's reliability.
Because
I think.
You said?
Cost.
it should be
Say that
cost
again, from
because it should be cost, which is not. I'm guessing. I'm not sure about.
You guys are guessing.
I think it's A. Reliability.
Any other? So we have cost. We have
reliability.
reliability.
Reliable.
You guys are thinking. You guys are thinking. I'm not. I need somebody to tell me this is what This is it. It is not.
We should go for cost because they said which is not one of the
I think it's cost.
Categories for Azure Advisor.
I'll go with cost.
Because of the knots.
All right.
I'll go with cost.
I'm not going to cost. I'm going with capacity.
What is it? Okay.
That's what I'm going with. You are receiving an email notification that virtual machine in Azure region where you have your VM deployed is experiencing an outage. Which component of Azure Service Health will let you know if the application is impacted? So region.
I think it's B.
Yeah. So this is one thing you need to look out when when they talk about. So for your resource is more pertaining to what's happening in your own environment. Not to everyone now. Now, when we talk about the region, we want to talk about what is being related, service health related to a particular region, but when you talk about the Azure status, it is actually for everyone. So you said B, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Resource health. You said pertaining to your
to pertaining to your
own
resource,
service.
yes, which is the individual, yes.
Resource health.
So I will take it back to, let's go back to the knowledge to here. I'm just going to explain something. So So for the Azure advisor, like I said, it's going to give you recommendation. And some of the recommendation is based on reliability, security, performance. There's nothing like capacity. What's capacity? Capacity is not a feature. We never talked about, when we talked about the benefits, the Azure benefits, that was nothing like capacity. You get what I'm saying? So, but when it comes to reliability, Azure Advisors checks your resources. Say, are they reliable? Are they secured? What's the performance? What's the cost? Operational excellence. And this one based on the service health. I think we just jumped this one. I'll just explain it that there are lots of things that needs to be checked. The up down, the healthy state of your resources. But when you look at individual cloud resources, which is pertaining to your own, you talk about the resource health. When it's focused on the general service, like maybe infrastructure as a service is generally down, in the region, there's a region issue. I think I'm doubting the response on that particular question now. But this is more on services and region. Then for global, you talk about the Azure status. Let's even go back there. So that the virtual machine in an Azure region where you have this is on. So you talked about the region. So it's not just your service now. So it should be the service out. Yeah, because you are getting an email notification in an Azure region where you deploy, your machine is an outage. It's not individual. I'll not take this answer. So let's go ahead. The last one is, how can you prevent creation of non-compliant resources without having to manually evaluate each resource? How do we prevent the creation? We discussed this yesterday for people that were in class or people that have checked the video. What do we use to prevent? I talked about the fact that just like we have the House of Rep guys, they make decisions, they put out laws, to say this is what you can do, this is what you cannot do. Yeah.
Azure policy.
Yeah. So we have the Azure policy. So what's the best way to prevent inadvertent deletion of a resource? What do we
Azure
use?
resources logs.
Yeah.
Or resource log or something.
As I say.
Yeah. Yes. So that's it. Nice. That brings us to the end of our Azure Fundamental Class. You guys can see that it's not so difficult. It's not. Or is it? No one is
We
talking.
still never can tell. Maybe when we get to practice.
You guys, yes, that's why you need to, that's why you need to check some of the things in there. I cannot, yes, I can talk about things, but the good thing is, if once you guys start creating those resources stated within that exercise, you also have an idea of what's going on. Okay. So some of the things I'm going to be doing is I'll be sending you guys. I'll look for the event for the Azure Fundamental, so that you can join the event. When you complete that, when you're able to join the event, it's going to be for 2 days. I'll check the one that is most suitable for you guys in the UK, and Nigeria. When you join the event, you are going to be given a voucher. This voucher, you can use this voucher to you can use this voucher to write your Azure fundamental resource. So fundamental exam, if you want to, that is after you've gone through the videos, you've gone through the documentation, you've practiced those exercises, then you can go and get, get certified. So the next thing is, where do you want to head into? Do you want to go into Azure AI? You want to go into security, compliances, and identity fundamental? You want to push into, data fundamental, or the Azure administrator. The good thing is, when we talk about the Azure administrator, it incorporates all these guys. So that's why we are picking, the AZ104. So on this link, you can see each of the syllables we've completed, where we talked about, the described cloud computing. So here, you need to go through these things. It's going to, it gives you that access to, read more about what the cloud computing is about. So for everything you do, you're going to get, so from here, you can nest. This tells you, what cloud computing is about. You can even get to, play some videos. It's going to describe the shared responsibility we talked about in the class, what you cater for, what the cloud provider caters for, then explain the different types of model. It explains this Azure Arc that we talked about, the multi-cloud, what is multi-cloud and the likes. The consumption-based model. If you complete that module, you can go to the next module that talks about the benefit, and each benefit that we discussed in class. Like, the good thing is, for each of these modules, there are videos that you can check. You can see scalability, vertical scaling, horizontal scaling. We talked about these things: readability, predictability, performance, cost. When you are done with that, I think we have like 7 or 8 modules. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or it's more. But depending on each of these things, all these things we talked about it, the benefit, the cloud services types, where we talked about the IaaS, PaaS, and the SaaS, the core components, where we talked about the management group, the subscription, the resource, the resource groups, then the Azure compute. We talked about the virtual machine, the Kubernetes service, the container instance, virtual machine scale set. We talked about the storage services, where we mentioned, the blob, the tables, the files, and we talked about which one is the last one? The table, the file,
Queues.
the queues, yeah, and even the hard drive, the disks, yeah. So we talked about the Azure identity, access, security, the cost management, some of the tools used in governance and compliance, where we talked about the policies and the likes, the tags. Then today we talked about, the tools for managing and deploying Azure. We talked about the Azure portal, the CLI, and the likes, then the monitoring tools. So this is what I expect you guys to finish up. As you can see that even myself, the fact that, I've done this fundamental as far back as 2019, I still go back to complete, most of this stuff. I do not want to miss out on anything. So even when, there are some that I've not completed. So, and for every module you complete, you get some points, and it does make sense. So please, I send that to the group and we'll send this again. Please go through each of these module, one after the other. The good thing is, or let's say the best way to do this is, every module you can open them in a new tab, because if you try to do this module after one another, and you click on the unlock another module, it might take you to a different module entirely. So you can right click, read about that module, finish it up. So if you dedicate an hour for this module, for this reading, you should have it completed within 30 days. You know, most of you guys still, looking at being a DevOps engineer in the future. We have our DevOps community coming up soon. It's going to be powered by me and some other guys. This should start operation maybe by March or April. There are a lot of things you're going to see on here. We have, different community leaders. You get to meet most of them. I'm sure for some people that have actually, followed me on LinkedIn, you will see some of the things I've done in the past, like bringing people for webinars, talking about some of the tools that we use in Azure environment, some of the tools that we use, to deploy, our DevOps infrastructures and the like. So this is my page. If you want to follow me, I can drop these. This is for people that finished from University of Lagos and Lautech. You guys. So these are some of the, like I said, do not watch any of my videos that are related to DevOps. But this is actually my page. And one last thing, we have this buy me a coffee that we use in, we are using the fund to develop our DevOps and DevOps community, which is that DevOps.ng that I spoke about, and the tech talk with Femi. If you're interested in, giving us a token, to this thing, then fine.